Good evening, everyone. It is good to see all of you here. And welcome to Hope United Methodist Church, those who may be watching us online live or later on in the week or in the month. We are grateful that you are all here for our first speaker of our Soup for the Soul Lenten Speaker Series, focusing on mental health this year. We have a great team that I just want to acknowledge. And I lost their names. There we go. Oh, there we go. A great team that has put together all of these speakers for us over the next several weeks. Pam Lee, Patty Burnett, Marcia Harmon, Jeff Benedict, Mary Adette, Melissa Trujillo, Stacy Hilzer. They have all worked very hard to find the speakers you'll be hearing over these next few weeks, including William Carter, who will be speaking to us tonight. I also wanted to let you know that we're going to be talking about a lot of emotional things. And so we have three very special people, Pam Lee, Patty Burnett, and Marcia Harmon, who are sitting in the back. And if you find you need to have someone to talk to listen, to help you process some emotions you are feeling, we have places set aside that you can just go back there, grab one of them, and they would be happy to visit with you for a while. We want to make that welcome to you. But now I am going to call on Jeff Benedict, one of the team members, to introduce our speaker for this evening. So Jeff, come on up.
William is a very unique man in that he works with people from all stages of life and all different backgrounds, which I think gives him a very cool perspective on therapy. He is my therapist, and he's also one of my friends. And without further ado, William.
One, two, three. There we go. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I want to first extend a thank you to Jeff and the pastors of the church and the team for giving me an opportunity to be in front of you. Really excited to talk about something that I'm passionate about. So anything connected to mental health, whether you're one of my little people, I have like 5 and 6-year-olds I do therapy with, and then I have some folks who've been around just a little bit longer than I have as well. But it's something I'm passionate about, something that I think we all need. And a lot of things I'm going to talk about today are some things that like a lot of us already kind of do maybe, but don't necessarily know that they're things that we can practice consistently to help us manage our stress and anxiety. All right, so as Jeff said, my name is William Carter. I am a licensed social worker. I recently just finished all of my clinical practice hours to sit for my LCSW. So hopefully I'll have my LCSW by May. And if not by May, by August. I'll plan on taking it twice if I don't pass it the first time. But I'm really excited about that journey and the doors that that'll open as well. So I'll tell you a little bit more about myself on this next slide here. All right, so I am born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. I went to undergrad at Bowling Green State University. That's where I got my bachelor's in social work. Northern Ohio, not to be confused with Bowling Green, Kentucky. Once I left there, I moved to Chicago for grad school, got my master's in social work from the University of Illinois in the Jane Addams College of Social Work. In Chicago, I did a number of things in Chicago. I was a crisis worker for youth. My program got referred youth who were in danger of being involved in the juvenile justice system. So rather than going the incarceration rate, I became pretty heavily involved with the families to help them find resources and to do some light therapy work with the kids. Over a 90-day period, really I kind of had to get the family where they needed to go and then discharge the family, hopefully better, well-adjusted. From there, I worked with homeless youth ages 18 to 21, where I did everything from teaching them how to be self-sufficient within a milieu setting. So we're basically 24 youth living in one place. They all have chores, they all have goals and things they're working on. So my job was to help them figure out like how then do I get to a place of self-sufficiency. From there, From there, same organization, I ended up taking over being the coordinator for a program that was it was a scattered site housing program. So I had about 10 individuals who I taught everything from how to look for an apartment to when you go, what do you look for when you go into an apartment, took them shopping, had to teach them how to shop for household goods, how to budget, did some therapy with them, had to teach them how to be good neighbors. Because, when you're 23 years old and you've never lived on your own, you don't know about volume level. Or if your neighbor upstairs is like stumping around, like how do I handle this in a way that's like a proper way of handling this through the office or amicably by going upstairs. So teaching them everything within a 2-year period about how to really function in life as an adult when they've experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of homelessness, and a lot of really just like needing to reach for resources. I did like a very drastic pivot from social work into operations. And that's how I came into education probably about 14 to 15 years ago, or 13 years ago. I came into operations. So I did that for 2 years, was like, I miss doing social work. Ended up going from Chicago to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to be a founding team member of a school there. Did some mentoring stuff, did some social work, also did some like school culture work, which is a very loaded topic if anybody is familiar with that. From Louisiana, I moved to Brooklyn, New York. Continuing along the same lines, continuing to work with families and kids and making sure that our school environments are most conducive for what our young people need to thrive. And then from New York, I moved here to Denver, Colorado. Mid-June will be about 4 years since I've lived here, and that time has definitely flown by pretty quickly. So here I was an assistant principal for about a year. I did some network level work for school environment, and then I recently, within like the last 2 years, came into doing therapy work. So I currently do one-on-one therapy with a set of folks, have about 30 clients, and then I do some crisis work for hospitals overnight. So when I leave here, that's what I get to go do, fun crisis work. But what I do in that job is I assess for danger to self, danger to others, or grave disability. So I help doctors in emergency rooms make decisions on if someone needs to go into a psychiatric facility or if I can do a safety plan with them and get them some resources to get them back home. Lots of words to say all the things that I've done, but all of that work informs the way that I show up and the things that I think are important to talk to folks about. Right. So before we get started with the presentation, we're actually going to get up and do a little bit of moving, and we're going to chat with each other for about 3 to 4 minutes. We're going to do an activity called Blessings and Burdens. So one of the things that I will note about this presentation is that I love to understand my audience and to make sure that the material that I'm presenting is relevant to their context. So like there are some things in here that I've adapted very specifically to be more faith-based, but then there are also some things that are more like general that you could put a faith-based spin on. But I wanted to show you the versatility of some of these skills to show you that like you can look online and find a coping strategy or something, but then you can figure out how to really make it your own so that it's useful for you. So this is an example of something that's called burdens and blessings. So what we're going to do in a second is we are going to find a group of either 2 or 3 people, and we're going to share one burden. So something right now that may be stressful to you, something that's worrying you, or something that you've just been carrying around for a little bit. And then you're also going to share a blessing. So what's something that brings you joy or something that brings you peace? So we're going to kind of juxtapose 2 things here. We're going to juxtapose the fact that we have things that weigh us down, but like even in the midst of that, there's probably still a lot of things that we can look forward to that are positive. All right, so go ahead, let's take the next 10 seconds, find 2 or 3 people to group with, and then get started with sharing one burden and one blessing. Well, I'm not muted, so hold on. City, can I mute this thing? Can I don't know. Oh, you got, okay, never mind. Thank you very much. Oh, so I was gonna jump in here, but my mic's not muted, so I couldn't, But I'll go around and listen here for a sec. There we go, good job. Okay, I'm just listening. Oh, yeah. Get back on topic. All right, guys, I'm going to bring us back. So take the next 30 seconds to kind of wrap up your conversations and then just make non-awkward eye contact with me to let me know that you're ready. All right, gotcha, cool. All right. So my hope is that as you were sharing and as you were listening, what you noticed is that we actually probably have a lot more in common in terms of the things that are like kind of things that weigh us down, and probably a lot in common when it comes to the things that are more uplifting for us. When we think about stress and anxiety, it can feel very isolating. So the reason we don't really talk to people about it is because we think, oh, it's not a big deal, I can manage that. Like, oh, no, it's just something small. But then something small for one day goes into 2 days, then it goes into 3 days, and then 3 months later, we're realizing that we're sitting with a situation that we haven't talked to anybody about because we think we're the only one, or we feel silly talking about it. So the significance of sharing it is really to say, it's really important that when we start to feel some of the symptoms that we're going to talk through, that we not only talk to each other and lean on each other, really like as a body within this space, but then also our friends and family, leaning on them to help support us through it, to make sure that we are dealing with them in a way that's the most healthy for us. So in these next few slides, we're going to answer these 3 essential questions. I'm very much a crowd participation person because I can talk a lot if you want me to, but I prefer not to. Hopefully no one is opposed to reading out loud. I may ask for volunteers, but I'll have you just volunteer to do it. We're going to have someone volunteer to read the 3 essential questions that we're going to get answered in the next few slides.
What is stress and anxiety? How does it impact our bodies? What can we do about it?
What can we do about it? Next slide, please. All right, so what is stress and anxiety? So stress is a reaction to an external pressure or demand. So when we think about the things that we add to our to-do list, the things that I got to take out the garbage, I got to wash the dishes, I got a doctor's appointment on Thursday, at work we got this really big work project doing, so I need to make sure I contact these folks to get that done. Oh, you know what? My daughter has dance class on Thursday. I need to make sure we get to dance class Thursday. But shoot, I also have a meeting that's going to overlap with that. I need to figure out how to get her there. Right? All these different things add to our list of our list of to-dos, which add pressure to us, which is where we get the stress. That's what stress is. Not the flip side, another thing is we have stress and then we have anxiety. So stress is more external factors impacting us, whereas anxiety has much more to do with our internal self. So our anxiety comes from our thoughts and our feelings. Our perception of a situation is really the thing that shape or that decides the level of anxiety that we feel. We may feel that, I can't make that decision. If I wear that shirt, then people are really they're going to talk about me. They're going to say the shirt's too flashy. I can't wear that shirt. Or, we're in this group and I can't really speak up because if I speak up, then if I sound stupid, then my question's not going to get answered. But I know that person, they're really smart and I don't want them to think that I'm not that smart. So I'm going to hold it into myself. Or it could be maybe you're having financial challenges. And it's I'm sitting here and thinking about how am I going to solve this problem that I don't actually see a solution to. And because I don't see a solution to it, now I'm beginning to overthink the fact that I have to figure this out, and it just sits on us and that weighs on us. So anxiety has to do with our own thoughts and feelings and our perceptions, whereas stress is how outside factors impact us. So when we look at the table here, which I'm going to look back this way because it's much larger than looking at that screen. When we look at the impact of stress or how stress impacts us, what we know is that, like I said, outside pressures and demands is what cause it. The duration is usually short term because once we fix the thing that we're stressed about, once we wash the car, once we get our kid to dance class, once we knock these to-dos out, then instantly the pressure of that stress lifts. So it's short term. We may feel symptoms like tension or irritability or headaches or sometimes even trouble sleeping because we're constantly thinking about these to-dos that we have. Effects on the body, sometimes we can experience increased heart rate, some muscle tension, and some exhaustion. So something we're going to talk about a little bit later when we get into some of the practices that help us work through this is like we don't just experience stress and anxiety in our minds. Our bodies hold on to that tension. Does anyone in here get like massages or go to physical therapy or something where you just get a chance to kind of work out the different parts of the body? Has your therapist ever told you like, oh, you got a knot right there, that's really tight? That's how our body holds on to that stress. So a lot of people will hold it in like their neck and shoulder area. So you may feel really tense in there. Some people may have a little bit of lower back pain, but it's because our body is holding tension from something that our minds are processing and trying to figure out what to do about. Relief methods, like I said, would be just addressing the stress. So time management and some problem solving strategies can help you work through the stress. When we look at anxiety, it's similar to a lot of the stress things. The major difference between the two here is that stress can be pretty quickly addressed. Anxiety cannot be that quickly addressed. Because if you have, raise your hand if you've ever been responsible for a child in this room. Great. So if you are working with a child, children can be very particular in their preferences, and their desires, and you can probably not convince a 6-year-old that their thought, idea, or the thing they want is not the best idea at that moment. If you try to convince them, they may throw a tantrum. You'll have a variety of experiences or things from this kid, but that's similar to like how we think about anxiety. It's like to address my anxiety, I now have to address my mindset. I have to address my thinking pattern, which is much more difficult to work through because as humans, we tend to want to hold on to the things that protect us or that make us feel safe. I feel safe when this thought pattern, when this belief, the way it protects me and makes me feel safe, so I don't want to let it go because I fear if I let it go, then I'm going to lose control. So that's why anxiety takes a little bit longer to work through, and there's some more intense work that we do when we think about how to work through anxiety versus stress. Next slide, please. So like I said, our body holds on to some of this stuff. So when we think about stress, the physical response is it holds that tension, but it can also impact like our fight or flight response. That is this like primitive part of our reality that tells us that we need to protect ourselves. When something seems like danger, when we perceive something as uncomfortable, our bodies will naturally send a signal to us that says, hey, we got to get out of this situation. We got to get out of this situation. We got to protect ourselves. We got to rescue us. Sometimes we're able to just flee it, but sometimes we don't know what to do, so we get kind of stuck. We kind of sit in a funk, and we're just like, these things are bothering me, and I legitimately don't know what to do about it. So fight or flight is a physical response. We either physically freeze or we physically move from a space. Once again, we return to baseline, which is like our normal operating level. Once we take care of the stressor, when we think about stress, and impact on daily life, no real long-term impact. Anxiety, however, the physical impacts of it are all the same as stress, but the added layer is that you may feel more overwhelmed constantly. So it's not necessarily a place where you may feel that relief. You may have to do some work every single day, and we'll talk about what I call maintenance practices here in a little bit. But you may have to do a little bit of work to begin to get yourself in a place where your anxiety symptoms reduce over the course of time versus doing one thing that will have an immediate impact on it in the same way that stress does. And in terms of daily impact on the life, it can interfere with daily activities, with our relationships, and even our physical health. Stress and anxiety can impact our physical health. our immune system can be impacted by the degree to which we manage our stress and anxiety. There are different diseases. When we look at genetics, there are different diseases that may or may not be turned on or off based on how we manage our stress and anxiety. One thing we do know is like there's different cancers that can be turned on. Those genes can be turned on by how we manage our stress and anxiety. So all these different factors we have to take into account. Our heart health is connected to how we manage stress and anxiety a lot of times. So we got to be really careful with it and just really be paying attention to how these things show up when they happen. Next slide, please. All right, so how can I manage stress and anxiety? Can I have a volunteer? You don't have to raise your hand, just go ahead and read it out. A volunteer to read these 2 questions for me.
What practices can I use for maintenance management? What practices can I use to cope in the moment?
All right, so before we move on, I want to draw a distinction between a maintenance practice and a coping practice or a coping strategy. When I think about maintenance, nobody looks at a car and says, oh, that's a healthy car, right? Like we don't look at cars and establish them as healthy, but we know that there are things that we can do to maintain the health of our car over time. So for example, actually you guys call out, if we're thinking about maintaining the health of a car, what are some things that we do over time? Rotate tires, oil changes, check brakes. Something I don't do, maybe clean out the inside of your car. What else? Air filters. We have gas. We need to put gas in our car to keep it in good running order. What else? Wash it. There we go. Something else I don't do with my car. You probably can tell which one it is out there if you walk out. So those are maintenance practices. Or another way to relate to it is like if you take allergy medication or maybe blood pressure medication, right? If I take my blood pressure medication when I feel like taking it, is it going to be very effective? No, because the purpose for that, or the purpose for allergy medication, is to take it consistently to maintain its effectiveness over time. So we have maintenance practices, which are things that we should be doing fairly regularly throughout the week. Maybe they're not every day, but like 2 to 3 days out of the week we do them. Now, our coping strategies are a little bit different. If maintenance for our cars are the things that we named, what might be an example that we can relate to a car when it comes to a coping strategy? Something that I need to be able to use right now in the moment. Battery. My battery dies. I got to get that fixed right now. What did you say?
Not getting stressed when the traffic's in.
When you're in traffic, like you cannot predict traffic. In Denver, this is like the land of car accidents, apparently. That's the one thing I learned about this place. Like in New York, they can't drive, but there's not that many accidents in New York. But yeah, so it may be how we react in traffic. It could be our battery. Say we're on the highway and we get a flat tire. So getting my tires rotated is a maintenance practice, but a coping strategy in the moment for a flat tire is to get that tire fixed. So when I think about coping strategies, it's like I'm in distress right now in this moment. What do I need to do in order to get myself into a place where I can be responsive to what's happening versus reactive? Responsive meaning I've slowed myself down enough to be able to make an informed decision about what to do, versus reactive, which is I do it without thinking and then I potentially have a regret because I may have made the wrong decision. We see a lot of that when we're angry and frustrated, typically. So we can go to the next slide and talk through maintenance practices first. One of the things that I believe in when it comes to maintenance is this idea of mindfulness. Now, mindfulness has, it can have a bad reputation sometimes because when people think about mindfulness, they then begin to think about a lot of other things that can fall into some other like philosophical beliefs or theological beliefs that people don't necessarily align to. When it comes to me, when I think about mindfulness, it's simply a practice that takes your thoughts and feelings from outside of you and it allows you to like concentrate them on what's happening in the moment. So it's like if you think about light, a laser is just light. But the more you concentrate that laser, the more effective it can do whatever that light needs to do. So when we use these practices, these mindfulness practices, they're to help us concentrate our thoughts enough to slow our brains down so that we can think through what needs to happen next. A lot of times we have the solutions to our problems, but we don't necessarily know we have the solution because our brain is running so quickly. So mindfulness, I'm not going to read this whole slide, y'all, I promise. So mindfulness is the focus on what's happening now, your thoughts, feelings, body sensations, and your surroundings. It is an intentional choice to not focus on the bill that is due. It is an intentional choice not to focus on the argument I just had with my boss. It's an intentional choice not to focus on the fact that my kid is failing a class. It's an intentional choice not to focus on the fact that I might have made what I perceive as the biggest mistake of my life just 5 minutes ago. We're intentionally choosing not to focus on those things so that we can concentrate our thoughts enough to really process exactly what our experience is in that moment. And if we do these types of things consistently over time as a maintenance practice, we will begin to see the benefits of it over time. So some of these can be used that we're going to talk about can be used like in the moment, yes. But these are more so meant to be things that over time, we keep these as a practice. It will reduce the impact of stress and anxiety on our overall body. It will reduce the amount of worry that we have on a typical day. And it positions us to be able to think through things versus like being so reactive or so short. All right, so we can go to the next slide. So the next two slides are going to be pretty interactive. We're going to do these things together. The next two strategies are strategies that are adapted to be more faith-based strategies, although there are versions of these strategies that are just like very general, okay? So we're going to do this together. So I'm going to prompt you in what to do, and then we'll kind of go from there. So everyone's already seated, but if you're not comfortable, I want you to kind of readjust your body a little bit just so that you're sitting comfortable. You can either choose to close your eyes or maybe have like a soft gaze somewhere. So maybe kind of stare off into a corner or up into a random space, but not particularly focusing. You're going to breathe in slowly through your nose. You're going to breathe out through your mouth. And when you breathe in through your nose, the thing that I want you to say to yourself in your head is, be still and know that I am God. So imagine that you are in a situation that's very stressful, you're overthinking, you're very worried, you're very anxious about what's going on, and you need to kind of get your thoughts and feelings and emotions together. I'm going to sit, I'm going to make sure I'm relaxed. I'm going to let God know, you know what, I need to be still, I need to stand on your word in this situation because it doesn't benefit me to worry about it. So I'm going to breathe in and tell myself, be still and know that I am God. That's what you told me. Every time you breathe in, be still and know that I am God. Every time you breathe out, you then tell yourself, I trust you, Lord. Breathe in, be still and know that I am God. Okay, I hear you, God, I hear you. Breathe out. Okay, I trust you, Lord. And the recommendation is that you can do this for about 5 to 10 minutes. Honestly, you can do it for as long or as little as you would like to. It's whatever is the most helpful for you. So this is something that you can take it, you can adapt it. Maybe you can switch out the thing that you say when you breathe in. There may be another scripture that is more resonant with where you are. Replace it there. There may be a mantra that you really subscribe to or an affirmation that you want to put in place there. You could put that in that first place that you breathe in. This is what I want to believe. When I breathe out, it is me accepting it and saying, yes, this is what I accept in this moment. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is another activity. It's called the 5 senses. And once again, like this is a strategy that already exists. What I've done is I've just modified it to be a bit more faith-based, but you can replace these things with absolutely anything. So the idea behind the 5 senses is to, once again, put yourself in a place of being present. You can do this when you're sitting in a car. You could do this sitting in a sanctuary. You could do this going for a walk in the park or walk in the mall. And the idea here is that you find 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Now, obviously, the tasting part may be a bit more difficult if you're like at the park or in the mountains, unless you brought some snacks with you. So what I tell my kids when we do this, I tell them, you know, if you don't have anything in front of you, because maybe you're in the classroom when you have to use this strategy, or maybe you're just at home in your room hanging out, maybe you think about the last thing you ate. So I'm not thinking about what I'm eating right now, But if I had a peanut butter sandwich before, maybe I think about the texture of the peanut butter. Maybe I think about the smell of it. Maybe I think about the flavor of the peanut butter and the jelly mixing together. So we're going to actually do this together as well. This one doesn't require any adjustment. I'm going to say the prompt or say the thing we're going to do, give you a second to do it, and then I'm going to move to the next one. So first thing you do is I want you to look around and find 5 things that you can see. Just 5 things that you can see. Now, when you look at these things, don't just look at them and take them for granted. Because just like when you read a book over and over, or if you watch a movie over and over, what you'll notice is that there's a characteristic or something about it that you notice different every single time. So when you find something you can see, take time to really appreciate it. Take time to really appreciate your ability to have it in your space and for you to be in its space. Because the next thing you're going to do after you acknowledge those things is thanking God for them and thanking him for the beauty of his creation. So let's take a second, find those 5 things. Once you've identified them, taking time to appreciate them, take a second to give gratitude to God for them. All right. 4 things that we can feel. Things that are in your immediate environment. It's okay to touch things around you if you want to remember what the texture feels like. Maybe it's the seat, maybe it's your shirt. I'm a texture person, so like when something looks really soft, I get curious and I'm like, can I touch the fabric really quickly? So maybe it's that. Maybe there's something that's not that close to you that you can see, but you can imagine what it feels like from your memory. And as you feel those things, offer up gratitude for what you notice, what you appreciate about what you notice about that feeling. The next one, what are 3 things that you hear? The challenge with this one is that we have to actually turn off the voice of our mind in order to actually pay attention to the sounds in the space. Maybe what you notice is that it's not so easy to turn off my mind's voice to hear the voices or hear the sounds in the space. Same as with the previous 2, as you hear things, offer up that gratitude for it. 2 things you can smell. Notice the scent around you. Maybe there's someone whose cologne or perfume smells really great. Maybe someone's shampoo is very fragrant, and that's what you notice. Once you smell it, acknowledge it, extend your gratitude. And we just had some delicious food in the I don't know what the room is called down the hall there, but have some delicious food in there. So maybe you don't have anything in your mouth right now, but maybe you can think about the soup. Or I think my man back here had a quesadilla earlier. If you had a quesadilla, some cookies, think about that. Kind of remind yourself of being able to have that experience and offer up your thanks to God for that. So as you go throughout these activities, the idea is that you're focusing less on the things outside of you. And once again, you're concentrating your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions into the present. That slows our brains down. That gives us an opportunity to then process what we're actually experiencing in the moment. Next slide. This next slide are just, there's 3 additional things that you can try from the mindfulness perspective. There's mindfulness journaling, which is something you can choose to journal every day or every couple of days. There's progressive music relaxation, which is, or not music, sorry, muscle relaxation, which is like literally going from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet and tensing those muscles and relaxing them and scanning all the way through your body to do so and paying attention to where you're holding that tension. Where does that stress sit in my body? And then mindful listening, so listening to music or being outside in nature and really being intentional about, for music, picking up the instruments. What are the different instruments I hear? How do they play those instruments? How do these two instruments complement each other as I listen to it? Once again, the idea is to concentrate our thoughts. Next slide. Then we have our coping strategies, right? So our coping strategies are those emergency things. What am I doing right now in order to make sure that like I can escape this thing, this flat tire in front of me, or this car accident, or this very stressful traffic situation? So coping strategies, tools and techniques to help manage stress and anxiety by reducing emotional distress, calming the body, and shifting our thought pattern. Our coping strategies are really, really good for anxiety-based things. It can be good for stress-based things, but they're really great for anxiety-based things because those are typically the things that put us in the most distress in the moment. We can go to the next slide. All right, so this coping strategy, this one is actually kind of a longer one, but it is something that you can use like in the moment. Or if you wanted to do the regular practice of it, you can. But the idea for this one is, in the moment, I need help, I need support, I need to gather myself. So you can write down 3 things or 3 ways God has shown you love recently. Then you can write down 3 ways that you've made a difference in the lives of others. A lot of this has to do with showing gratitude or being thankful for like those opportunities. Once again, it's like I can take time to worry about the burdens, or I can say, yes, those burdens exist, they're real, these feelings are real, I accept them, I acknowledge them, but then also I have many more reasons to have gratitude, to be grateful. I have many more reasons to push myself to rethink about the things that are causing me stress. And then as you think about these things, you can then add like a scripture or an affirmation or a verse that allows you to really affirm the truth of God over the potential untruth of what you're worried about. Next slide. This one is a really cool one that I actually really like. It's called God's Anchor. And the thing that's cool about it is that it very intentionally uses our hands, right? So everybody put up a hand. And then what we're going to do is if I'm feeling stressed, if I'm feeling overwhelmed in the moment, if I'm feeling really anxious, I can then give myself these reminders. 1, God is with me. So I'm stressed, I'm anxious, but like I'm not by myself in this. Number 2, He's in control. So the thing that makes me the most anxious is that all these problems are around me that I can't control, but the reality is that God is with me and He's actually the one in control. The third one is I have to remember that I'm loved. The next one is that I'm not alone. The last one is I trust in His plan. The more you actually use this strategy, what's cool about it is that like your hands touch a lot of stuff. So it's almost like you're reaffirming yourself that even though I'm really stressed and worried right now, as long as I kind of keep my focus on the right things, no matter what I touch, I'm not by myself as I deal with it. And it's a constant reminder that the things that we're stressed about, the things that we're worried about, are not really as important as we've made them internally. But when we focus our attention, once again, we slow our minds down so that we can process it to respond to what we're experiencing versus reacting to what we're experiencing. Next slide. All right, these are just a couple other strategies that you can use. One of them is like name it and tame it. So as humans, we have a natural desire to avoid things that don't feel good. When I'm upset and frustrated, I want to avoid feeling frustrated. When I'm really sad, I want to avoid feeling sad. But like we're humans and we have these experiences. And sometimes we just need to sit in them and accept them. It's okay that I'm sad. Maybe you need to talk to the sadness. I do this activity with some of my clients. Like if you're feeling sad in this moment, okay, great. Let's talk to the sadness. Let's acknowledge it. Sadness, like, what do you need? What is this emotion alerting me to? All of our feelings and emotions they're signals from our body. Sometimes they're accurate signals. Ooh, sorry about that. Sometimes they're accurate signals that like will say there really is real danger. And sometimes they're not accurate signals because we're perceiving something as dangerous or perceiving something as a problem that's not. So when we take time to, lost my train of thought here, y'all. Okay, when we take time to like sit and acknowledge the feeling, then we can deal with it without judgment and say, it's okay for me to be sad. It's okay that I'm angry right now. It's okay that I'm worried about this thing right now. But the choice is to not allow it to overtake me, to not allow it to control what I do from there. And just acknowledge that I'm feeling this way, it's okay, it's gonna pass. And then box breathing, breathe in for 4 seconds. Actually, let's do this one together. So I'll demonstrate it first. Remember, breathing in is always through the nose, breathing out is always through the mouth because it allows us to control our breath, all right? And that, I'm not gonna get into the nerdy science behind it, but there's a lot to do with how that impacts our nervous system, which is the system within our body that controls a lot of our response to stress and anxiety. That's why a lot of these are like breathing techniques. So you'll breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. And that technique is called box breathing, if you ever heard that or if someone makes reference to box breathing. All right, next slide. I don't remember what's there. Okay, clearly this is the question portion of it. So those are some techniques that you can use. Once again, remember maintenance, things that I do regularly, taking my allergy medicine, taking my car to get tire rotations. We have our coping strategies, which is there's an emergency right now. I need to escape and rescue myself. I need to put something in place to help me regulate in the moment. Those are our coping strategies. I'm assuming that this can be made available to you guys, like you guys have access to it for you to be able to reference it later. But, oh shoot, I'm tripping, got it. This is not, I think I put, okay. Take 2. So I ended it, and this one, not even that part yet. So actually what we're gonna take a moment to do, and I don't know if you have like something you can write, a piece of paper you can write something on, or if you take notes in your phone, we're actually gonna take a couple minutes to make a commitment to ourselves. So a lot of information was shared today in terms of coping strategies, maintenance strategies, and you may not particularly remember all of them, and that's fine. But what I want us to take a second to think about, next slide please. What I want us to take a second to think about is what kind of commitment am I gonna make to myself as a result of what I've heard today. So it's okay to listen to information, it's more difficult to do something with that information. Whether we are sitting in a church service, whether we're sitting in a training for work, whether we're watching something on TV, implementing these things is more difficult because once we live here, we're going right back to life. We're going back to the stuff that causes us stress and anxiety. But let's prepare for that. So we probably won't take the full 10 minutes. We'll probably take about 5 minutes. I want you to think about 1 to 2 commitments you're willing to make for yourself. As a part of this commitment process, there are some things we need to consider. One thing we need to consider when we think about our head is there may be some things I need to think through in order to follow through with this commitment. So maybe I say my commitment is that I want to journal 5 out of 7 days. Well, what does that mean for me? That means, maybe I need to think through what time I need to wake up in the morning. Or do I do it in the morning or should I do it at night before I go to bed? So whatever the commitment is, think about what logistical things do I need to do to be able to actually follow through with this. The hands for me represent things I need to let go of. So we may need to put boundaries up in some areas in order to make sure that we can actually implement the commitments. Maybe we need to let go of, I don't even have an example right now. Maybe it's a thought that we need to let go of. The thought of like, I don't have enough time. That is something that I'm pretty sure everyone in this room can resonate with, thinking a lot of times, this is another thing I gotta do. I don't have enough time for this. Well, let go of that and make time for it. Because you either make time for it now or you risk the impact on your body later. And then the feet for me represent things that I have to walk through. What's going to be difficult about maintaining this practice with consistency? And the more we think about what do I need to do to plan for it? What do I need to let go of? And then what do I know I'm going to have to struggle through? that then increases the likelihood that we'll follow through with it because we've done the intentional work to prepare ourselves. So let's take we'll take it when it says 3 minutes on the clock up there. I'll call you back. But let's take the next 5 minutes to make a commitment. Note what you need to think about in order to follow through. Note what you need to let go of in order to follow through. And note what you need to walk through because it's going to make it difficult. I'll do a pulse check because you may not need the full 5 minutes. And I don't want you to sit here and be like, oh, he's going to sit here and look at us awkwardly for the next 3 minutes. Who would like more time to continue getting your thoughts down? More time, anybody? Okay. Let's give, I got a few people. Let's give it another 2 minutes. And then we'll do Simon Says with the rest of you guys. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that at all. While those two wrap up, let me get a few people to share out, actually. What's a commitment you made to yourself? And then you can either share like what you put for like what you need to think through. You can share what you need to let go of, or you can share what you think is going to be difficult for you with following through with that commitment. Okay.
I signed up for the Lenten coffee study thing, so I have to make sure I do the devotional. I know
Okay.
it says we don't have to, but that's what I want to be.
Okay. What's something that you think is going to make that difficult for you? What's going to make it difficult? Okay, so you're not a morning person, but it's something that will require you to get up in the morning. I keep hitting this mic. All right, anybody else? What's a commitment that you want to make to yourself as it relates to kind of what we talked about this evening? Sir.
I'm going to commit to spending 5-10 minutes just to sit outside and a nice cup of coffee and listen to a cookie and enjoy it.
Good. What is something that you might need to let go of in order to follow through with that commitment?
I'm going to have to let go of always trying to whittle down my to-do list. I'm going to have to say,
Yep.
just wait.
Because it's going to be there. And you're going to feel the same way about it tomorrow as you do today, and this evening as you did this morning. So good. I like that. Let me get one more person. What is your commitment to yourself? Yes, ma'am, in the back.
I have a large project and I'm working on it. I keep feeling like it's too big and I can't get it done. So I'm gonna let go of listening to your own voices in my head. I'm gonna give myself permission to feel stressed about it for a minute, but then I'm gonna commit to doing the breathing exercises and the other things that I took pictures of the slide.
Wonderful. Great. I love to hear it. So now we're in the question and answer portion. This is the real question and answer part versus the first one, which wasn't real, apparently. We can go to the next slide there. I do have one question that someone handed me that says, are stress and anxiety normal? Yes. Stress and anxiety is an experience that every living being experiences. Animals also experience stress and anxiety. So like if you have a dog, some dogs experience like separation anxiety. They yap, they tear up things around your house when you're not home. Cats do whatever they want to do all the time. I don't know what kind of stress cats have. I imagine they don't actually. But like from the most simple insect or animal to us, like we all experience those stress and anxiety feelings. A lot of it is connected to just kind of like how our brain processes the world around us. And once again, our stress is the to-do list, the things that are added that we have to get done. That anxiety, it has to do with our perception of what's happening in the world around us. And not to take it too deep, but our stress and anxiety, or our anxiety, some of that can also be connected to like trauma. So if you've had like a childhood experience, or even as an adult, if you've had a pretty bad experience, say a car accident, when you're in a car, you may start to feel anxious. You may start to feel worried about being in a car and being back on the road after a really bad accident. But it's because your mind is focused on factors that are outside of your control that may or may not manifest. And that's the thing with anxiety, is that like it's not real until it happens, but we've told ourselves that it's real. Our bodies experience it as if it is real, but like it's not necessarily real. But it has the ability to hold us back and hinder us. Yes, ma'am.
Our fifth evening will be on trauma.
Good deal. So the fifth evening, you'll find probably a little bit more about how this connects to those trauma experiences. There's like a study out, not a study, but there's some research out that talks about how like our bodies hold on to trauma. Like our brains don't forget. So just because we don't remember consciously doesn't mean that it's not sitting back there. So sometimes we are being reactive or responsive to things that happened a long time ago, but we're just not aware that this 5-year-old version of us is now talking to this 50-year-old version of us. Just because like that's just how trauma works. So our brains don't forget, our bodies hold on to it if we don't take the proper steps to deal with it. How do you let go? So letting go, honestly, therapy is my very unbiased opinion, is what I would say. Like working with a professional that helps you make those connections and dig into it is really what's necessary. There's so much processing we can do on our own. We can read books, we can do this, we can talk to friends. But when working with mental health professionals, like we're trained to be able to kind of like listen to what you're telling us, but listen behind what you're telling us. So we can hear you say one thing, but then we're connecting dots and looking for themes that then help you come to realizations about experiences that you've had and how those experiences have impacted you and how they continue to show up in different time periods throughout your life. And then also the coping strategies and maintenance strategies, those kind of help you manage it throughout the week or throughout your life. But to bring them to a resolve, you want to work with a mental health professional for sure. Any other questions? Yes, sir. All right, we'll go here, then we'll come up front here.
A couple of us were talking, having had cognitive behavioral therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, we don't know exactly what it is. Could you comment on how this might relate to that?
Yes. So cognitive behavioral therapy is probably one of the more common models of therapy. So what cognitive behavioral therapy is about understanding really like how your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions are all connected. So the more we understand about how our actions are connected to our thoughts and feelings, the more we can actually interrupt that process. I'm trying to think of a concrete example. Let's see. Here's an example of like a model that falls under the cognitive behavioral umbrella. There's something called like rational motive behavioral theory or therapy. And basically what it talks about is it says that it's not an event that causes us to have a reaction, it's our belief about that event. So the example I always give is like if I were to walk up to my brother and just smack the holy heck out of him, he could respond in one of two ways. He could become upset and retaliate. He could also feel like, oh, well, I deserve that, so I'm gonna back down and I'm gonna kind of surrender and not do anything. But it's not the actual action of being smacked that is gonna cause his reaction, it's how he thinks about it. So a lot of times we're not really aware of how much our thoughts really trigger the way that we feel, which then impacts the way that we act. which also, is from a biblical perspective, that's also biblical principle, is to make sure that like our hearts and minds are right, because the Bible says out of the abundance of our heart, the mouth speaks, right? So what we do, what we say, what people see from us has everything to do with what's already going on the inside. So cognitive behavioral therapy has a lot to do with helping you understand your thoughts and feelings in those connections in order to change your behaviors. So our behavior change comes from changing what's up here first. And then we had a question up front here.
I know that anxiety and depression are kind of go hand in hand. How do you know when anxiety needs to be taken care of with medication?
That's tough. That's a tough one. So I am, yep, you did it. Good job. High five. Gold star. So what I'll say, so ask the question again for me, because I distracted myself just now.
How do you know when anxiety is too much that you need medication for it? And it's linked to depression, so you need anxiety, antidepressant medication.
Yep.
When do you know your anxiety is too much?
My non-biased response to that is to say, like, honestly, working with either your doctor, a psychiatrist, or a mental health professional, whether it be a therapist, a counselor, whatever, because it really has to do with the way that it's impacting your ability to function every day. So, like, some people have higher or lower thresholds. If you're working with me, like, this is why I said unbiased, because my biased opinion is that two things that I'm very careful about. I'm very careful about labels of diagnosing people. I'm very careful about recommending people to talk to their doctor or to see a psychiatrist for medication. The reason for that is because, like, there are some things that we can do, that we can practice over the course of time that can impact and target certain symptoms. And if we can do the right treatment with you in therapy that can treat those symptoms, then, like, maybe it's not bothering you to the degree that you need medication. But there are some people who, like, no matter what you do, there are some things going on that don't allow those things to be very effective, where medication then becomes like a supplement to kind of help. So medication doesn't solve the problem. Medication is like, it is a supplement to work that you also need to continue doing. Because what happens is our bodies will develop a tolerance. So either you're going to be changing medications or constantly increasing medications, which your body is going to be reactive to, especially with the antidepressants and some of those anti-anxiety medications. They have some pretty serious, like, side effects, which is why I'm very careful about really any medications, but particularly for mental health related medications. So working with your doctor or mental health professional are probably the best ways to determine. But a lot of what we do in the mental health spaces, and even when we think about diagnosis, it's about how long has this been happening, what is, like, the frequency, what is the intensity of it, and how is it impacting someone's ability to function every day. And that could be for anything, whether it could be ADHD, it could be that, it could be a lot of stuff. Oh, there we go. So then they can, that person may have some more specific information on that. There was another hand close. Yes, sir.
Anger is something that is very, powerful. It kind of gets in your stomach, your gut.
Yep.
And I wondered if you thought anger could be therapeutic in some way, that you could help yourself by, wrestling with your anger or subduing your anger.
Yep.
What's the proper attitude towards anger?
I think like I was saying earlier, like, we naturally are averse to things that don't feel good. We naturally go toward the things that give us pleasure, whether it be, something we're supposed to be doing or not supposed to be doing, right? So, like, when we think about that experience of anger, it is much more satisfying to let it out and to express it toward, the object of the anger. But in lieu of doing that, like, sitting with yourself and literally asking yourself, like, well, why do I actually feel angry about this? Once again, kind of going back to what I kind of talked about with that cognitive behavioral thing, is like, it's less about the feeling of anger that you want to pay attention to. You want to pay attention to, why do I actually feel this way? When that person made that statement, like, why did I have a visceral reaction to this person simply saying, well, I don't believe in washing my spoons. You know, silly example, but like people say things and it makes us go like, well, what did they say? But like we can ask ourselves, but why did you have that reaction to what they said? And then understanding understanding my like thoughts, feelings, and beliefs about it, that's what actually helps you manage your anger a lot better, because you get to know yourself better. And you can maybe be able to say like, oh, that was a silly thing. Like there really was no reason for me to have that angry reaction. Let me do something else to kind of to manage it. So sitting with it, as long as you are not like stewing in it. So sitting in it is not, I'm going to continue to rehearse and replay like a lot of us do. I'm going to continue to rehearse and replay this thing this person did that made me mad. I'm thinking about, okay, this is what they did, but why do I feel this way about that? So that's what we do in that sitting process, but that's definitely a good thing to do.
To me, when you say making a commitment, it feels like you're looking for a solution. What if you can't come up with a solution and don't feel like you can make a commitment?
I guess it's kind of like how you think about it. So when I think about making a commitment, commitments can be long-term or short-term. So for me, I guess like with this particularly, the commitment was more around like how then, if I understand what stress and anxiety is and how it impacts me, what commitment can I make to myself to making sure that I'm properly managing that as I go throughout my life after I leave today? So like which one of these strategies would you want to pick up? Is there a book you want to read? Is there some research you want to do that then can give you more insight on how you manage it in a way that fits your, I guess that fits like your preference. So if you can't find a commitment, maybe that just means like you got to sit, maybe do a journaling or reflecting exercise to say, you know, what is it that I feel like I need, and what's a commitment I'm willing to make as it relates to managing my stress and anxiety. But I mean, we don't always have answers for things. That's one of the other realities of existing, is that sometimes we have answers and sometimes it takes us a little longer. And quite frankly, sometimes we don't ever get an answer for something that we're looking for. Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you all for your time. And, lovely slide here. So I do work for Mindfully, but I actually have my own business that I'm also building called The Space. Once I get my license, I'll be doing some, I essentially want to be able to have my own private practice, which will be facilitated through this. Also doing like a couple other projects with it right now. But if interested, what I do offer outside of Mindfully is mental health coaching and mentoring. So because I'm not licensed, I can't do therapy outside of my job because I'm licensed through my manager at my job. But on the side, what I can do is I can offer similar services. I just can't call them therapy legally. It has to be coaching. So I do that. But then also I do a lot of workshops and trainings and talks like this. Folks have me come in and do these pretty frequently. So if that's something that you're interested in, my contact information is up there on the screen. All right, now I'm going to pass it over to someone else. I don't know who that is.
That'll be me.
There we go.
Thank you very much. That was really helpful. Really appreciated the hands-on exercises and suggestions. So thank you very much. And I wanted to let you know next week we are having Stacy Atkins with Abundant Health here. As a United Methodist, we're committed to creating abundant health for all, a global connection striving for mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. Life-saving health ministries are enriching the lives of people around the world. So you're invited to join us next week for that. Thank you.